Hi, John Boyd here. I want to talk today about something bigger than any single bill or election. It's about power, where it sits, how it shifts, and what happens when it moves too far in one direction. In Utah, over the last several years, we've seen a clear pattern emerge. Voters use their constitutional rights to speak directly through elections and voter initiatives to address issues they believe the legislature isn't handling well. One example is Proposition 4, where voters approved the creation of an independent redistricting commission and clear standards meant to reduce gerrymandering and increase transparency. Another example is Medicaid expansion, where voters approved expanding coverage through a ballot initiative. In both cases, voters acted through lawful constitutional processes, but in both cases, the legislature later stepped in and rewrote or narrowed what voters had approved. In the case of redistricting, the legislature passed subsequent legislation that reduced the commission's authority and made its work largely advisory. In the case of Medicaid expansion, lawmakers significantly altered the scope and implementation of what voters had passed. When these changes were challenged in court, judges were asked to answer a basic question: does a voter-approved law still carry real weight once the election is over? As courts began to take those questions seriously, the response from the legislature shifted again. We saw proposals like Amendment D, which would have explicitly expanded legislative power to override voter initiatives. We've also seen bills that raise procedural hurdles, making it more expensive, more complex, or more difficult for citizens to qualify initiatives for the ballot in the first place. Regardless of where you stand on any of these policies, the direction of travel matters. Again and again, the pattern looks like this. Voters act, the legislature revises, courts intervene. The legislature responds by asserting more control over the processes, over the courts, and over the rules themselves. That pattern should concern anyone who cares about balance and accountability. And this isn't unique to Utah. Nationally, we see a similar trend. Congress increasingly delegates authority to the executive branch. Presidents of both parties rely more heavily on executive orders. Federal agencies issue regulations with the force of law, often far removed from direct voter oversight. We're seeing a flashpoint right now with the happenings in Minnesota and other cities. Each step is usually defended as necessary or efficient, but taken together, they reflect a steady consolidation of power away from voters and representative bodies and toward institutions that are harder to check. Our system was not designed for efficiency, it was designed for restraint. The founders expected disagreement. They built friction into the system on purpose. Legislatures were meant to legislate, courts were meant to interpret, executives were meant to execute, not govern by decree, and voters were meant to remain the ultimate source of authority. When any branch begins to override the others, or when voter participation is treated as something to be managed instead of respected, trust begins to erode. This isn't about left versus right, it's about structure. It's about whether the rules stay stable after the outcome is known. It's about whether participation still matters once the election is over. You don't have to agree on every policy to agree on this. A healthy system depends on clear boundaries, mutual respect between branches, and genuine accountability to the people. My belief is simple. We need to slow this down, restore balance, respect the role of the voters, the legislature, the courts, and the executive, each within their proper lane. Because in a republic, power flows upward through the people, and once that principle is lost, it's very hard to get it back.